Standing on a translucent platform through which you can see the other half of this city upside down and mist surrounding the rest, with beautiful glass and crystalline structures and metal sculptures winding their way through the air, connecting the two halves of the city with no sky. Athalor and the sage stand in his home, the Alfar refuge of An'Andarud, surrounded by the power and magical ability of that culture, and on a platform far above him, looking down with his advisors, guards, mages, and attachés surrounding him, is Athalor's father, Hadarai An'Andarud. Welcome, everybody, to Book of Dawn, IOTH Academy. I'm tormented by gnomes, and joining me for the first of our 3 mini-episodes is Leg Day. What's going on, my dude?
Oh, not too much. A couple of my friends just tilted out of their minds playing up against a pharmacy in Overwatch. But hey, we had a good stream overall. Productive day. And yeah, we got 3 1-hour episodes today. So we'll be having 2 breaks. And each of them, the cast member's going to swap over. Gnomes has to work the entire thing, unfortunately. Can't get away from...
It's no different than a normal night.
True. But that does mean I get to go to bed at 3 a.m. today instead of 5 a.m. So
fancy, decadent.
Everything's coming up leg day.
All right. Aside from breaking into IOTH's office and stealing some ridiculously powerful loot that was just lying around, and making the trip here through the teleportation circle to the city of An'Andarud, is there anything else important that's occurring to you that happened last week that we need to, last week that we need to tell people before we get into it?
We did codify the rule set of the quill.
Mm-hmm.
For any of the D&D nerds out there. Kind of acts a little bit like a sorcery point deposit, for those of you who are aware of the sorcerer rules as written. And it can be charged with up to 20 points of energy of various sources, be it elemental, soul-powered, dawn energy, and those can be used to cast spells. So yes, we finally codified what the quill do as an artifact of power.
It's still a fairly BS wibbly wobbly thing, but it's BS that's starting to be within specific layers of BS. Very well then. Why is this how we're starting?
What happened?
We just had a level 40 Seosh Silent City card get played. Okay, guess I'm working that in somehow.
Curious.
You stand, as mentioned, in the glitz and glamour of your home, a city built inside a dimensional pocket that faces itself. When you look up from one side, you see the other side hanging in the air, upside down. And in between the two, metal towers curl and meet around an enormous sphere. Within is the gyre. The entity, fluctuation, the pattern, the heart of this city, and what keeps it able to be separate from, yet within the world. And as soon as your feet touch the platform, that familiar hum that you haven't experienced for years, except by proxy, little things you've made for yourself, memories that you've walked through, you can immediately hear it, you immediately feel it. What does Athalor do? How does he respond to this?
Who are the immediate greeting party?
There are a variety of warriors, mages, so on and so forth. This is fairly typical for cultures that make use of teleportation circles. Because a teleportation circle, if an enemy knows the pattern, then it poses a risk. So they're usually built in places that are easily defensible and guarded most of the time. But not everyone here is a warrior.
Greeting?
What was that?
Is there a traditional Alfar greeting which would be appropriate?
Yes, and last time you asked me that, I said that I would make it up, and I haven't done that yet. But there definitely is.
Athalor does that.
Mm-hmm.
To be as respectful as possible upon coming into his home territory.
Mm-hmm.
The customs are not wasted.
You notice one of the nearby mages pulls a lens with a crystal, a little stick with a crystal in the lens, and looks over the 2 of you. Well, the 8 of you, because of your warden escort. scanning each and every one of you. You've seen these before, especially with the outbreak of mirror clones at the Academy. This is a gem of true sight, and they've just used it to scan if any of you are in disguise or mirror clones or shapeshifters, etc.
Would it pick up my little raven totem?
No.
Fair enough. Athalor kind of opens his arms in a very much scanner head gesture towards the mage, and then makes eye contact with his father, presumably out of earshot, just in the overseer kind of area.
As he stands up there, he raises both of his hands in a greeting gesture and speaks, and magically amplified, his voice carries across the gap. Not blasting your ears out, but easily heard, echoing with a rich timbre throughout the entire chamber. The House of An'Andarud welcomes with open arms the great sage of the Alfar people. Long may you live. The House of An'Andarud welcomes with open arms our son, Athalor, a preeminent scholar of IOTH Academy. Welcome home. And there's like applause, and not, cheering and whooping, but it's almost like polite, but genuine applause and cheers from everybody nearby. They're going to go ahead, unless you respond otherwise. The sage just bows in response without immediately responding. When you're at her rank, you don't have to really pay much attention to decorum. And the other folk here are going to escort you, or gesture for you to move up the stairs to go meet your father and his escort.
Athal's going to pretty quickly move up the stairs. Like, part of him is nervous about what's to come, but also there's a sort of spring in one step from returning home after all this time. The familiar feel of the platforms under his feet, the smells of all of the little bit of the brimstone from the forges of the artisans. At the same time, it's like brimstone but sterile,
sort of chemically thing to it.
And they're very familiar smells from his childhood, and it kind of fills him with a little bit of zest.
You recognize the outfits of the two mages accompanying him, the Kothramoyer, the abjurers who manage the gyre and who hold the majority of political power in An'Andarud. It's a magocracy. Mages and magical power give you rank and status. And the An'Andarud family there's no law that says that the An'Andarud family is in charge. They have the same last name as the founder of the place, and they've consistently been selected as the next Kothramoyer Mor, the master abjurer who rules the city. But again, they're not technically royalty. It's weird. So many of people in your party are like not technically royalty, but royalty adjacent.
They will be eaten with their aristo masters all the same.
That's true. Bourgeoisie is bourgeoisie. The wardens will part to allow, on both sides, and the bodyguards are going to part to allow the heads of state to go ahead and meet. And the sage is going to gesture for you first.
Kothramoy Mor. It's a pleasure to see you all again. I didn't think I'd be returning home so soon.
I am at a loss for words for how good it is to have you home again. Have you eaten? The answer to that question, regardless of the truth, is no.
Nothing compared to what we serve at home.
All your favorites are ready. Come. And at the top of this thing is a arcane gate, a short-range arcane gate that is going to whisk you away from this landing platform, which isn't physically attached to anything else. It has supports and such, but there's no walkways leading away from the teleportation circle landing area to the rest of the refuge. And that's a deliberate choice so that you can't just throw an army in there and have them march around.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the Kothramoy,
Mhm.
the other ones, do they have a more familiar relationship? Are they kind of like pseudo aunts and uncles kind of thing? Are the Kothramoy a tight knit group with the exception of the family that's always causing shit?
There's a good number of them overall. Not ju- and not all of them are from your family. There are 4
Mhm.
primary families in An'Andarud. There's the An'Andarud family themselves, and the Na An'Andarud uncles, branches, etc. There's the Miamer family, which tends to be more more focused on fighting. Not like they're all warriors, but if you're going to be a war mage who actually blows things up, that's more their tradition. Spell singers, that kind of thing. You've got the Lewin family, who are unusual because they have a lot of sorcerers instead of wizards. They're the ones that got your uncle and your father kicked out years ago when they were trying to make a play to convince everybody that the An'Andarud family was not fit to serve. But despite that, members of the Lewin family are still amongst the Kothramoyer, and some of them even sit on the inner council. Give me a history check.
Let's hit this. Can I have advantage?
Absolutely.
This definitely seems up Athalor's wheelhouse for history. Oh, +1. Excellent.
You have learned that you gained +1 experience points.
Excellent.
Effectively, because of the way that they tried to bump the An'Andarud family out of power, it wasn't a coup, it wasn't an assassination attempt or anything. So there's no legal basis.
Real politic.
Exactly. There was no legal basis to kick them out, and also it's a smart move on your father's part to keep them around because that's going to reduce tension overall. And appointing them on his council not only gives them some buy-in so they feel like they're getting something, but also says, hey, you got me exiled and I'm not afraid of you, so I'm still going to make use of your skills. So it's a risky move, kind of a swinging for the fences move, but it makes logical sense.
Cool.
The walkways of An'Andarud tend to be long with beautiful pillars on either side. Some of them have ivy and plants growing over them, and they wind through the skies, connecting the various metal towers and structures. On the bottom, or the 2 sides, like the ground level of the 2 sides, you have a lot of the more commoner homes, forges, foundries, and they do produce some of that smoke, like we talked about, but they keep the skies clear with magical filters and such. It's not enough to get rid of it entirely, but it's enough to make sure that the 2 sides aren't just like creating a huge cloud that floats between the 2 of them. It is a little murkier between the 2, but it's not like LA on a bad day degree.
Controlled pollution.
Exactly.
Before they go through the gate, Athalor's just gonna take a moment to close his eyes and like just flexes his fingers and feels the percussive rhythm of the place.
It's like another
foundries and Jaya, remembering what it was like to live on this rhythm compared to the much more artificial rhythm of the school life.
He's not hurried along his way, but the great and powerful take a moment to look to him. By the time that you open your eyes, you can see some eyes on you. Not urgent or annoyed, just like, let's go. The gate, unlike the teleportation circle where the ground drops out from beneath you, this feels more like point to point, where you're just stepping through a circle that connects in a way that it shouldn't. You're led along the galleries, the high sky bridges, and there's guards, but there's still just nobles and mages and scholars and artificers walking back and forth. And as you're going by, you can see there's a good deal of gossip and whispering. Give me an insight check, please.
Let's hit that insight. I'm been overtaken by what's just being here again.
Yeah. You're not really paying attention to them. They can, whatever. before too long, you're brought before an enormous metal door, steel with beautiful silver inlay of complex geometric patterns. It swings open easily, powered by magic, and inside is a surprisingly small but very, very tall room with big windows on every side, a little fountain in the corner, a flickering orb, just a like not even a physical object, just a ball of magical light floats above all of it. And there is a circular table set down with an absolute feast on it.
Glad to see we're not going straight down to business then. This is much nicer.
The sage eyes you, but proceeds to take a seat when invited. The doors swing closed. Only the three of you remain in this room. The wardens and the bodyguards are all right outside the door, but as the doors swing shut, there's almost a feeling of pressure on the ears, and the sounds of everything outside go out. Except, of course, for the rhythm of the gyre, which just sort of runs through everything. I've prepared both some of the comforts of home and a taste of your homelands, esteemed sage. And he pulls out, we'll start with a bottle of song mead. We have our own bees here, imported from the other world, bred over generations to ensure that their nectar has no enchantments that are undesired. Free of the bounds of the laws of fairy food, we are able to grow great hives of them ourselves and distill it all here in-house. And he's going to go ahead and pour 3 glasses. The sage eyes yours when your dad just pours you an alcoholic beverage, but doesn't say anything about it.
I think we're basically just doing French rules here. Like, hey, you can drink with your family. It's fine. It's not like they're going partying.
Yep. And I wrote a whole bunch of notes about the food, but we have 40 minutes, so I'm not going to go into the detail. I'll just give you the short version. There are pomegranates and spiced pastries and curries from Brontha, sautéed fungal delicacies from the Underdark, including a meal that's based around bioluminescent moss that's been pureed and turned into a sauce that lies underneath this side of thin sliced sautéed mushrooms. All the best fare that you can get if you live in the Underdark, like, say, one of the Alfar. It might be food that you've had before, because one of the things about An'Andarud is that it's incredibly cosmopolitan. You were raised with access to a lot of things from all over the place. After all, An'Andarud's primary trade is they hand out magic and magic weapons, and they get things from all over the world. So,
I've also eaten both of these specifically at the Academy on the Bronthan Religious Day, and we had dinner with a sage.
Yes. There is also fish that have been smoked with the blue-tinted wood that grows in the rain clouds of the Sky Kingdom. It's incredibly light, flaky, and delicate. And as he's going through each of these meals, with your permission, esteemed sage, my consort Nivera would like to join us. The sage goes along with it, acquiesces, and not long after that, your mother enters the room. Obviously just prestidigitated clean from her work in her forge and her experiments and such. And she sits down, and Hadarai pours some song wine for her, and she drinks it with just the bare minimum of etiquette. If Hadarai's being graceful, slow motions, she just like sort of picks it up and starts not chugging it, but sipping it quickly.
Athalor kind of mirrors the shade of etiquette as he he gets up from his chair as like gingerly as possible and kind of rounds the table to like just hug on the side of his mother.
She gives you a huge grin, like a cat ate the canary grin, and goes in for it as well. Hadarai just sits there like, yeah, I expected this. This is fine.
It's been too long.
Tell me everything. Have you been
Did you
successful?
like this? Athel like shows off
Did you?
the pauldron with a gyre cape.
Yes. Yes. I only saw the diagrams that you wrote home about. I haven't actually seen it. And she's going to start poking it and like looking at the gaps and checking the rune work and such. Hadarai glances with a smirk at the sage.
Some favorite friends of mine helped me with the metalworks. I was no good at that. I was all about programming in the enchantments, but I think that we got the half cape attached really well. And of course, you guys sent this beautiful chain. Thank you for that. And it fits so perfectly. I almost feel like a battle mage already, but obviously that's not going to be where I end up. Still,
I was going to say,
style.
you haven't mentioned anything about wanting to be a battle mage.
As Father noted in his missives, it's a time where needing to defend yourself can be paramount.
Well, lots of ways to do that. They are both highly pleasant the entire time. Your mom definitely feels more genuine. But they're not at dinner. They're like not talking about anything except they want to know about school and what you've been up to and how your classes are and tell us about your friends. And they've clearly been reading your letters. Like they'll reference things that you mentioned there and go back and forth on it. The sage is good at masking her impatience and is just sitting there observing, seeing what it is that she can get out of all of this.
Athalor noticed like problems with numerology and stuff, but how other things are going super well, and how he's been very much diving into the Alfar legacy and trying to make sense of what IOTH left behind, possibly to slight grimace of the sage.
Yeah. And Hadarai will look at the sage for a moment before turning back to you and saying, so now that you've met some of the heroes from the stories and the books, what do you think?
I've been constantly impressed by their power and inventiveness. I've seen things that make some of the Dawn histories look unoriginal, but I've also learned that ancient heroes are still people. They deal with the same follies that we do. They have fears, desires that could be exploited, egos. But I'm glad to have known the sage. As much as she scared me all those years ago. And still hasn't signed my book.
You actually get like almost a laugh out of Hadarai, just a genuine little grin. Well, she accepted you, and you passed her tests, and obviously she wouldn't make a mistake, so you're more than qualified. I think what they're going to do next in the conversation, and this is going to take hours, by the way. Like they're moving very, elf time is not like human time. And you're all elves here. So that sort of prolonged sense of just letting things unravel as they go and getting into the weeds with conversation and such, it's undercut by the nature of your business here and what brought you here, what brought the sage here. But overall, this scene is going to take hours. Dinner is going to take hours. There's course after course, and they're all small courses, but like exquisitely flavorful. And the An'Andarud way is not to serve you a huge pile of food. It's to have a huge pile of food in the back. And they just keep ringing, oh, you're hungry? I just happened to have this gourmet thing ready for you. Oh, you're still hungry? For salad? Well, that's so weird. We happen to have this thing from the garden of blah, 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 specially nice. That's sort of the An'Andarud way. So course after course after course, and they are very much attempting to steer the conversation just towards catching up with their son, and occasional polite defers to the sage, but they want to see some of what you can do as well. They want to sort of just, what are they teaching at these schools, except not as blunt.
Athalor is very much as almost like a diplomatic entreaty to his father, very much steers towards his third year elective, which was the metaplanar geometry, or maybe that was second year. And he's discussing what was learned there and how he's been expanding upon it, and how it's been super useful in being able to work through various teleportations and translocational spells like gate and stuff. In order to, he talks about the vortex warp plan that he came up with, which was pretty predicated upon using metaplanar geometry to use it through the gate into another area. Is very much trying to. He doesn't have as much of a charismatic overtone on his father as he thinks he does. He's very much showing off. He's trying not to make it look like he's showing off, but his dad knows that he's trying to very much be like, I'm gonna be able to be like you soon. Like, give it another 400 years, kid.
Good. And Hadarai also sort of, when you talk about some of your theories, he hits you with but what about this? But did you think about this? But what if you incorporated this? And it's not a takedown, undercut you sort of thing, but it is challenging. And the vibe is he's talking shop with you like you're a mage. That's the way that he's pushing this. And your mother, Nivara, will occasionally just come in with a comment about, well, why did they do it that way? Why did they forge this, this way? I would have done it like this instead, but, depends on resources. And the sage very much is quiet.
Athalor talks about his first year elective, sculpting, and how it was inspired by Vijaya and the mixing of both organic and geometric shapes, sort of beyond what the normal limitations of like physical geometry are, and how that can't really be captured in marble, but you kind of capture the essences and the meanings and kind of like the music that flows from it in marble. And obviously his mum and dad managed to do that quite accurately through a Jaya box that they made, which sort of emitted the similar vibrations. And he was talking about trying to mirror that through sculpting, and how he made gifts for his friends, like the third miracle, like the mural he made for Garnet. I think he's very interested in talking about his creative accomplishments, as someone who always thought about like the City of Songs in Luminius. Talks about like the dirge he sang at the Green Gala. Did either of his parents go to IOTH Academy? They didn't, right?
They did not.
So he explains the Green Gala. And he's very he wants to talk about how he's been creatively using his resources since the mind blank, but decides not to. He really wants to talk about like fragging a guy with the Book of Golems, but it's like, you know what, they're here because I'm here because they think I'm in danger. I'm gonna skip that bit. But obviously his father basically gets the free read on him that like there are things he's proud of, but he doesn't want to talk about.
You also talked about the Vortex Warp plan. How much detail did you go into on that?
That's gonna come down to as much as I can with the mind fuck. Because I don't know what I don't know.
All right.
Like he's very, very proud of that. And he thinks that like, oh, this had no danger involved in it at all. It was the perfect plan because it was my plan. I engineered it so that no one would get hurt. I don't know who we were going for, but it's pretty good.
It sounds like you're on pace. That's good progress. That's about what we would demand for our son, right? Yes. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but you've been very resourceful. An An'Andarud trait. Now,
I'd like to think I do the family proud, and I can't have your son being embarrassingly under-resourced.
by all accounts, that's the opposite of the case. Now, what of the defenses Nephraxis is coming after all. And after the Terra Nimbus strike and the psychic assault and the construct possession event, not to mention internal strife, enemy agents, and a series of nearly disastrous encounters, I would imagine that the Academy's defensive resources have been tested and perhaps depleted.
I wouldn't insult your intelligence, Father, by saying that you're wrong in that assessment. Yes, we've been tested many times, and obviously, wardens die. It's the nature of battle. But in the last few days, I have made a significant advancement for the school's defenses. There was a room in the spire that had been left locked and unknown since Arth's disappearance. And through my knowledge and my understanding of IOTH's legacy, I've managed to unlock it. And within, there are gates to the elemental wellsprings. It's a huge trove of power that we can use to once again reinforce those defenses and cast magic, the means of which we might not have been able to with our own innate power. It's going to be a game changer. And Athalor draws out IOTH's quill and kind of just like floats it over to Hadarai. It's still a flame, fully charged with the fire energy.
He pauses before he reaches out slowly, delicately, not a tremble, almost like when you watch slow-mo and there's just way too many frames, but he's moving at the right speed.
Mm-hmm.
He'll grasp the quill and just roll it in his fingers so that it spins all the way around, trailing that fire along the way. And Naivara was about to say, "Oh, a Nexus array." Obviously, he would have had one there. You know the sorts of works that you can... And then she looks over at Hadarai, who's just almost mesmerized, spinning the quill around.
While Hadarai is mesmerized, Athalor like seizes on the moment to have dramatic timing on him while he's looking at Arth's quill.
Mm-hmm.
Father, the Alfar legacy is more than one child's safety. And while I do think that I'm safe at the Academy, I think that we need my understanding there. That if the Academy falls and I haven't unlocked all of IOTH's secrets with my understanding, they'll be lost to time, they'll be lost to the Infernals. And that's why I want to come home, Father. I miss you. I miss Mum. I miss being here, but this is really important. Not for me and for you, but for every Alfar, for every life in this firmament not touched by the darkness, and many of them that are. If we let that knowledge go to waste, we're playing into the hands of actors like the Serpent.
Give me a persuasion check. And as usual, it's going to shift things, but your roleplay and what you actually said come first.
I'm going to use my theatrics die.
Okay, 19. There's a long moment, and then he says softly, "And how can those secrets be preserved when they lie in the hands of the enemy?" The sage almost imperceptibly tenses. And are the defenses that you've constructed enough to withstand the Book of Dawn?
We have plans that should make that the case. we're looking to recharge the sphere. We're creating it's theoretical at the moment, but we're working fast. We're trying to create a siphon. The Book of Dawn was used for something, and we pinpointed a location towards the north. We're trying to create a siphon to remove some of that dawn energy and replace it back into the sphere. Dawn energy by itself, we both know it's possibility more than confinement. And if we offer it options, it's likely to, even if only evenly, split amongst them, just from the nature of the chaos and the creativity that it provides. And I know, Father, I know enough to funnel that into the sphere. I can't do all of the ritual by myself, but I know how to direct it. I can recharge those defenses.
Roll an Arcana check to demonstrate learning.
I'm going to lucky dice this one.
Go
Why
for
not?
it.
Me trying to figure out where A is in the alphabet.
15 it
I'm
is.
going to use my Raidspiration as well. Why not?
Valid. Yep.
All in on the Arcana. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Baby.
He will gently push the quill, like with one last look at it. He almost throws it, but it's more like he's sliding it because it was floating a moment ago, and he's assuming it's just going to float back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Walk me through it. Obviously, Leg Day may or may not know the complex arcane formula, so you're allowed to just say that you start walking him through it.
Athalor looks over to the sage in a meaningful glance of like, how much do I say about the void magic? Because he's assuming his father's not an idiot. He knows these things exist, even if he doesn't know about the precise mechanics and law.
He messages you. The concept and theory, if you must. The names and specifics, perhaps not.
Okay, Athalor doesn't specifically mention that it's his best friend Garnet who's going to be doing this. Or Master Icarel now. But does talk about the interactions of the Dawn and the Void energy and how they might be able to create this siphon and how he's planning on using the Nexus Array to try and build essentially an entry point into the sphere. It's almost like the causeway, but it's not directed at physical, but metaphysical energy.
The primary complication that I see is that IOTH's office, as you describe it, is itself metaphysically folded. And therefore separate, contained by, but separate and distinct from the sphere. So you'll need to make sure that you incorporate some way to pass it through that layer of metaphysical folding to the outer receptacle. If you don't account for that, it could just fill that pocket and make it, or pop it as it makes its way to its destination.
I thought it was like starting to get a little bit. At first he was quite scared of how his father was going to approach this, but with the encouragement of his mother, he like picks up a napkin and just like starts. He takes it over to sit between his mother and his father, and he just sort of like starts drawing on it. It's like as his father's talking through these things, they look at like the metaplanar diagrams. He's like, well, what about here? Can you make some kind of connection here? How do we try and fold the space to transfer the energy between these two places? And he's very much like, perhaps to the annoyance of a sage, he's almost forgotten the overall mission as he's deep in the talk shop.
And Hadarai, again, is kind of treating you like a mage. Sometimes he'll get to concepts and say, I imagine they teach that in a few years. And then he gives like a basic version of it without going into the details of these higher abjuration.
He's doing the wormhole paper thing.
Exactly. He says, you'll come to understand this in time, but here's where a theory you're not aware of would solve this problem. This could take hours. If you are willing to, this could go into the wee hours of the night, because it was night when you transported. So like this could go, and you've been at it for hours already eating your meal. Like, this could go until you need to sleep. Trance.
I assume for fairly energy-rich foods, like
Mhm.
Athalor's buzzing off the walls.
Yeah.
He is absolutely in his element
Mhm.
here. This is the theoretical is exactly where he wants to be.
Mhm. Sage is very quiet this entire time. Hadarai once or twice sort of asks her what she thinks. Not just like, what do you think? But it's super technical, right? If we employed this rune at this angle, would that affect things? And she gives like one word non-answers. Deflects and just goes back to watching the three of you geeking out and working on it. And by the end of it, this is actually going to help if you attempt this. It is like working with Hadarai, he has some very good ideas, and he's more additive or saying, okay, take this part that you did and replace it with this, which is more effective, but still working off your core concepts. It's very collaborative. And I don't know that it's something that the other students really get, even if they've done the studies. At must be 4 a.m. So like now.
Should I do an intelligence check to see whether I internalize this versus I have I have the book knowledge of it versus innate knowledge.
All right, you might have to like get some papers or write home to say, hey, can you walk me through that thing again? Because it's that thing where somebody's explained it to you and you're like, okay, I think I know how that works, but I can't explain it, and I don't know if I can implement it. I've got the notes from the
lecture.
Exactly. But it's going to take more review because again, he's talking about second circle, third circle magic, and you've just dipped into second circle magic.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And he even talks about what's beyond that, which is great circle magic, which is stuff that only multiple mages working in tandem with energy sources and stuff can do, which technically this applies here. But there are some theories of that. You found a book about this in IOTH's office. There are some theories of that that don't apply to first, second, and third circle magic. But he's familiar with it, and so that's where he'll, patch that in. By 4 a.m, this is going to go to 4 a.m, unless you have something else you want to bring up, say, interrupt, etc.
I'm going to insight check with Sage.
Okay.
During all of this, to see if there's any kind of indication she'd give me as to how to steer things in like the brief gasps of air above the nerdy pool, you know.
Let's see, guys. Let's see what's going on in your head. She's not actively saying almost anything. Wow. Well, I guess you've known her long enough. She's analyzing. She is analyzing Hadarai. Just watching him, seeing how he works with you, figuring out his tells. How does he look when he's excited? How does he look when he's hiding something? Can I tell the difference? Just using this as an opportunity to collect data on him effectively.
Okay, then Athalor just keeps going and essentially fulfills his it's a bit of a dream for like to be able to work with people of this kind of caliber. Like even if he wasn't their son, like these are some professionals who we just love to work with. And it's like, well, I'm expanding my data set and I'm having the time of my life. So he just keeps going.
It's again 4 a.m. or something when Hadarai sort of looks up from things and says, this is a good start, but we've kept you for long hours and the paths of memory await us all. Shall we reconvene?
I'd be happy to.
Your room has already been prepared for you.
Good.
And the sage says, it is the wish of the Academy that the wardens assigned to protect your son, as we greatly value his life, remain with him. I appreciate the gesture, great sage, but here within my domain, within An'Andarud itself, Athalor is as safe as he could possibly be, with warriors and master abjurers who have layered enchantment after enchantment over the centuries to protect it. Of course, I mean no slight against you or your capabilities, Cothramor more. But it would be a failure on our part not to move through with what we've promised, even if it's purely symbolic. Yeah, he's not having it. He's going to say, like, yeah, they can be in this corridor, but it's not the same as, like, your corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And we've prepared illustrious places for you, Master Sage, and they're going to go ahead and clean up and go back out of this enormous high-pointed room where the guards have just been, like, they've got food and water. People have been bringing the wardens and everyone food and water, but they've just been, like, camping and taking shifts. And they're going to go ahead and lead you all the way, as a group first, all the way to your old room. And the sage gets gently invited to her space, which is close, but not like immediately there.
On the way, for small talk, Athalor is showing his mum the wand of magic missiles and just like talking shop on arcane items.
Mm-hmm. And she's just talking about, like, yeah, you can mass produce these if you have the right the right energy source, like that Nexus array that you apparently have. You could easily mass produce something like this, probably something much more significant. It's just a matter of getting your logistics in place, making sure that the arcane molds and runes are impeccable, perfect, that you have good workers on hand, and that you're using top materials. And, well, we can go into this. We're at your room now, but I don't know if that's even what you're going to end up doing anyways. But we can talk about it.
Yeah, I'd love to take your get your take on the central crystal. I don't quite understand that one, and I've been mostly drawing from the pools themselves to power the quill.
Mm-hmm. It's likely a focusing and combining array in order to control more at once and focus it more at once. But all right. Off you go for now. In the morning, we'll talk.
Okay, Mom.
And she brings you close and gives a kiss on the top of your head, tousles your hair, and your room is perfect. Exactly as you left it. Maybe a little cleaner. I don't know. Depends on how you kept it.
It certainly would have less books strewn all over the floor.
Yes. All the books have been placed up on the shelves. There's even some new ones, a little bit more advanced on various arcane theory.
Oh, I thought I was going to go over to the new books and see if they look recently placed, as if they were placed to, as like for the theoretical Athalor that they get to stay home, or if they were just sort of like added stage by stage over the years as like a ongoing maintenance effort.
Do investigation for me. They've probably been added over the years, but nobody else has lived here.
Athalor kind of stands in the middle of his room and thinks about the two possible futures ahead of him. Whether he would potentially lose this small political battle and would have to stay behind, and what that would mean for the school, but also what it would mean for him. It's been a very scary year. And he thought he'd die multiple times, and he's seen things that are much bigger and much stronger than him decimated. And it does make a young elf feel very fragile, and perhaps a slower life would be better. But at the same time, that decimation, in his mind, threatens everyone if the Book of Dawn is not recovered in time. So it'll take a while to ruminate on personal comfort and safety versus what he believes to be the greater good.
When you finally manage to go through the mental exercises, which is a weird combination of worked up and excited over everything that you've seen, and just kind of torn up over this conflict that you're experiencing, and also soothed by the proximity to the gyre, which was such a constant during your entire childhood. Once you do trance, what do you trance about?
He's going to rerun the conversation with his father and mother.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's just trying to get his head around these advanced concepts, and it won't be easy, nor perhaps it won't even be effective, but repetition is one of the cornerstones of learning for the bookworms, and a bookworm he certainly is.
Okay. It's in the middle of one of these complex theories, which in trance you're able to sort of project around and zoom in and mess with it a little bit.
You're allowed to zoom and enhance.
When there's a knock at your door. It's been a couple hours.
Oh. Hello? Come in?
The door swings open, and your father shuts it behind him.
Father,
Athalor.
why are you awake?
With each passing day, you grow closer to adulthood. Driven perhaps faster than an elf should be. But you are my son, and you are a mage of the House of An'Andarud. And that means that you deserve honesty and truth. It's time to meet your uncle.
Athalor is very much speechless.
Mm-hmm. He's just going to wait. Even if it takes an hour for you to talk, he's just going to wait.
He's here?
Come with me.
Yeah. Athalor comes up from his cross-legged pose, stretches himself out a bit, and kind of looks between his father and like the elven chain that's laid out on the bed that has remained pretty much undisturbed as he's just sitting cross-legged on the floor, and sort of goes through the mental calculus of, am I going to need this? Probably a touch too long for his father to... and
The night
then
goes
just
short.
grabs more of like a overcoat kind of thing from a presumably fairly well-stocked wardrobe.
Yeah.
And nods to his father and gestures to the door.
His father reaches out to take your hand.
Athalor reaches out and grabs it.
And with his other hand, traces a design in the air, the words of magic flowing from him. And there's a flash, and everything around you is gone as he casts teleport. You're no longer inside the airy chambers of your room. The thrum of the gyre is still there. Stronger, even. You've stood outside the very doors where the Cothramor manage this incredible power. This is not like that. This is more like it's rumbling along, like you're living somewhere with noisy pipes. Really, really noisy pipes. It's like it's echoing and resonating through an enormous vessel of some sort. The chamber itself is dark. Your eyes adjust through dark vision. Behind you is an enormous set of doors that have been welded shut. With magic, the rock has been like, they've had a rock wall cast over them permanently. They have a layer of lead, iron bars reinforcing it. And ahead of you is a doorway that flickers with purple light.
Father, where are we?
Our city has no sky, yet it has two surfaces. We are between them, but on the other side. We are beneath them.
Like an inverse sky?
Yes. You'll
How long
understand.
has Uncle been here?
Many years. Since before you were born. Athalor, we may not have spoken of what I said to the Academy. The pressure that I applied to them in order to keep you safe. But neither of us are fools. And you're free to ask me anything. It's time for the truth.
Did you know that he was talking to me?
Yes.
Did you not think that that would be pertinent to bring up to a child? Like, imaginary friends go away after a while.
You are not just a child. You are my heir. And the heir to knowledge that transcends everything that you've been taught so far. Which is our closing line as we go to our break and usher in Crowan. Now, are we good for Monday?
Yeah, we are good for
All right,
Monday.
cool. So, folks, we're gonna do an extra bonus all Athalor episode of IOTH Academy.
All uncles.
Oops, all An'Andarud. How about that? Kind of covers all the bases. Yeah. An Oops, all An'Andarud episode is going to be on Monday at 6 o'clock Pacific, the normal time. Bonus solo content. So please join us then. You'll see Legde there. Tune into all the streams he's working this weekend and stick around for our next mini solo episode.